0531 3103 2026. Just checking my audio now. Just checking the audio. Be with you soon. KTV.
as per the international humanitarian law.
How would such a warning work? So, for example, if it's in southern Lebanon, an ambulance has turned up to the site of a strike, is trying to help patients. How would a warning from Israel work in that situation if it believes some of those workers are members of Hezbollah?
So again, as per international humanitarian law, warnings must be effective. And when we say they must be effective, that means the warning that is issued for a specific area or for a specific location, it must give enough time for the people that are present in any area to evacuate that area. Even after a warning is issued, whether it's an evacuation warning or any other type of warning, it should give enough time for people to evacuate, and even those who remain behind, the civilians, must be protected in the ongoing hostilities.
Now, we have heard of reports of a number of healthcare workers, but also healthcare facilities being targeted in Lebanon, particularly in the south, where this operation is really being conducted on the ground. What has been the impact of these strikes on health facilities?
So across conflict today, usually, again, civilians bear the humanitarian consequences of hostilities, with any attacks or any damages that affect critical infrastructure, such as hospitals, such as primary healthcare centers, not only in Lebanon, not only in southern Lebanon, but across the region and the world. When hospitals are affected by the hostilities, when primary healthcare centers are affected by the hostilities, the impact goes far beyond the immediate moment. Disrupting access to these basic services deny the affected population, deny the civilian population from access to essential services like healthcare services. And this delays eventually as well the community's recovery time long after the fighting ends. And usually when such concerns come to our attention as the International Committee of the Red Cross, we do engage in bilateral and confidential dialogue with the parties to the conflict to remind them about their obligations under IHL, to remind them that to respect international humanitarian law, because the way hostilities are conducted today will have immediate as well as long-lasting consequences for the civilian population.
Dr. Shawki Amin Eddin, Humanitarian Affairs Advisor at the International Committee of the Red Cross in Lebanon, thank you for joining us. And a little later in the program, we'll be speaking to a mother in Beirut who has been displaced as a result of this conflict. She'll talk to us about the challenges of trying to find a new temporary home.
Now, the war in Iran has massively disrupted global oil and gas markets. We've covered it extensively. Many of you have been in touch to say you're already feeling the financial effects. And as you may have heard from our guest in India about 10 minutes ago, the crisis is also giving the dirtiest fossil fuel, coal, its biggest boost in years. We can speak to the energy specialist, Christopher Dolman, who joins us now from Canada. Welcome to the program, Christopher. Just tell us how disruption to oil and gas ends up boosting coal use.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob. I think it's mainly a result of like this energy security scramble. Due to the, in Asia particularly, there's a high reliance on LNG to fuel gas-fired electricity generation. So you have 20% of the world's LNG supply stuck on the wrong side of the strait for a month. And, this is a just-in-time energy system, LNG, for Asia, because, the whole region sort of lacks significant gas storage, with the exception of China. So I think every country is trying to assess what this means. Like, how do you mitigate or slow down this impact? Replacement cargoes on the spot market are fetching twice the price that they were before the conflict.
So that's if you want it there and then.
There and then. I mean, it could be in the next 20 days or 3 months. Spot market is up to the next 3 months. So, prices are rising even if you have contracts. But if you're relying on this, you're thinking, how high will prices need to rise to destroy demand? Can you as a country afford it? Will other countries outbid you? At what point does LNG procurement become an issue? Can your consumers afford to pay higher electricity prices, gas prices? Given that they're paying double for oil and other products like LPG, can the government afford to subsidize the fuel? Can utilities afford to take on the debt? Can you continue to operate as business as usual as a country? Or are you going to run out of U.S. dollars to fuel the imports? So then, when you start thinking about, bidding wars and that sort of thing, these questions become easier to answer if you have the capacity to switch to coal.
So
coal usage.
So I can see why, as we were hearing from Jyoti Garg in India about 10 minutes ago, why an individual restaurant can switch to burning wood or burning coal when it comes to cooking food. But whole economies can't easily switch to coal. If you have a load of power stations that you need to burn gas to generate electricity, can you just switch it very quickly to burning coal?
No, I mean, this is the switching is going to come from the countries that are able to do it, that have sort of the coal capacity available. So you think in Thailand, they're restoring coal units that were mothballed last October. The Philippines is trying to ramp up, the coal units to higher, capacity factors. I think we're seeing that in Bangladesh and Pakistan too. I mean, you have a lot of idle capacity in places like Korea and Japan, just because there were basically environmental restrictions, seasonal that are being relaxed. And, those could, sort of mitigate some of the use, of LNG there. But, there is, go ahead.
Yeah, and so is it your sense then that countries regard this as a temporary measure while they cross their fingers and hope the war ends pretty quickly and things go back to the way they were, or install more renewable energy systems, solar, wind, that kind of thing? Or is coal here to stay for a while?
I think it's, it's not just a coal story. I mean, I think for the time being, you're trying to do everything to just, relieve, your currency reserves, you relieve your economy of this burden. But I mean, nuclear renewables are already probably playing a role in this crisis. I mean, Taiwan and Korea are talking about reversing retirements. Korea might have 5 gigawatts of nuclear reactors restarted in May. I mean, every gigawatt of nuclear, that you have running could save about $90 million US, 68 million quid, I think. And fuel costs at current prices, and solar. If you have a gigawatt of solar, that's about a fifth of an LNG cargo, or 13 million quid a month of fuel costs. If you have 5 gigawatts of that, that's like a gigawatt of nuclear. So I think.
So you're saying that Taiwan and Korea were planning to shut coal-fired power plants, but they are now keeping them open.
No, nuclear
plants. Okay. And so when it comes to the battle to reduce carbon emissions, to save the planet from overheating, this crisis then, the energy crisis, is really bad for the planet, isn't it?
I mean, it could be, but I mean, it could also be positive for, achieving climate targets if it, pushes countries away from locking into LNG. If you awaken to the fact that renewables are more affordable, more secure, they provide resilience in these volatile commodity shocks that we're experiencing. I think if South Korea's president, went out and called this an opportunity for renewables, and I think that's true. And I think if you look at the last crisis, we saw Pakistan, respond to the economic devastation by not being able to secure LNG. The consumers put it into their own hands, importing low-cost solar panels to improve their energy security.
And this is why some people regard China as the probable long-term winner from this conflict, if it does result in more countries installing more renewable energy products, because they largely come from China.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that interpretation. But I think, there are benefits to any country that, deploys these. These are resilience building, multiple supply chains being affected if you have renewables installed now. And it will help you in future crises too.
Thank you very much indeed. The energy specialist, Christopher Dolman there, joining us from Canada.
Now, 3 people were killed and 20 were rescued after a half-built building collapsed in Ghana during a church service on Sunday. Recovery operations continued into Monday, with emergency services still clearing the scene in the capital, Accra. It's believed the partially constructed multi-story building collapsed following heavy rain. Here's a voice note sent to us by a resident of the area who witnessed the collapse just minutes after leaving the school compound where the church was located.
Yeah, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you find yourself. And I am Hafiz Mohammed Ahmad, a resident of Newtown, and I have an office opposite of the school that the incident happened. I was on the phone and I heard a loud noise at my back. Then I turned my face to watch. I saw that the school building is coming down, not far from my office, not far from the school. I was in the middle of the road. I didn't go far from my office. And my office is facing the building, the school building. I saw that the building is coming down and the dust came and covered everywhere. It was like I cannot see the school very well. And I removed my phone to video it. But later I stopped and I come closer. Then we find out that because there was a church program, they were doing a church program inside the building. The security over there said the contractor that construct the building didn't put enough cement and things that is supposed to, the materials that is supposed to put on the building, they didn't put it. So they find out that the building cannot be used. So that's why they abandoned the building. They wanted to dismantle it, but they leave it that way. So these church people come always to do a program in it. After we came closer to the building, we saw that there is people crying inside the down there. When after the building get collapsed, they could see that the people are crying inside it. So they able to rescue about 4 or 5 people at that time. But there was, this concrete, some of them are very thick. They couldn't use the chisel to chisel it in a way that they can get inside and remove some people. But the pastor, after they remove the pastor, he's been announced dead because when they went inside, they saw him. He was dead before they removed him out. So that is what happened.
And that was Aziz Mohammed Amadou there, who witnessed the collapse of the building in Accra, Ghana, where the church was located. Of course, it's important to say that we do not know what caused the building to collapse or who was responsible. In less than an hour from now, we'll be speaking to a senior member of Ghana's National Fire Service, which was involved in the rescue effort. If you've got a question for the fire service chief, if you're listening in Ghana or anywhere else, you can send us a message on +44 7786 2050 85.
You're listening to Newsday from the BBC World Service with Catherine Bierhanga and Rob Young. A reminder of our main headlines. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said the US-Israeli war with Iran has achieved more than half its aims, but declined to give a timeline for ending the conflict. The European Union's foreign policy chief and foreign ministers from the European Union are meeting in the Ukrainian capital today to discuss further support for Kyiv amid the ongoing war with Russia. And the Russian-owned oil tanker is due to dock shortly in Cuba, ending a near total fuel blockade by America on the communist-run island. Now, Isaac Fannin is largely unflappable, but you should have seen the expression on his face when he discovered that the head coach of the Ghanaian national side, for he is a son of Ghana, had been sacked. He was open-mouthed and struck mute.
Yes, I was struck mute because there are 2.5 months to go until the start of the World Cup, and it is his crowning glory in this job as Ghana manager that he's held over 2 stints across the last 4 years, and a 57-word statement by the Football Federation, which wished to thank Otto Addo sincerely for his contribution to the team and wish him the best of luck in his future endeavours. They say that they will communicate the new technical direction of the Black Stars in due course. It is a huge call, Rob, by the Ghana Football Federation to sack Otto Addo just under 3 months to go until the World Cup. They have been on a terrible run of form. They've lost their last 4 matches, including on Friday. They were battered by Austria 5-1. They followed it up with what I thought was a fairly creditable 2-1 loss to Germany on Monday evening, but apparently, according to the Ghana Football Federation, that is not a good way to go out, and so they have sacked him.
How do they?
So some varied news there. Ghana looks like they're set to have a new manager, the national team. Shout out to Ghana. Shout out to Ghana. But we have a troubling story here. Interior Minister Montaka Mohammed Mubarak. So we've got a tragedy here. Women and children rescued being treated, various hospitals, 90 to 95% certainty that no one remained trapped inside. Right, so that there was a 90 to 95%, so 5% chance. And we hope either they are out, or if they're in, they get rescued pretty quickly, like now. You imagine being underneath a building. I mean, come on. Always wondered that. Our focus on such hard materials. I understand it's needed with tool sculptures and stuff like that. But also, things must be done properly. Regulations, you know. And what you find is the normal people, like me and you, we're the ones that are underneath the concrete, and the ones that done it, or not, you can't even blame the workers sometimes, because someone should be watching them to make sure they do their job properly. It's normally the big boys. They're the ones. They don't get no judgment, right? They need judgment under them. Yeah. They need some judgment there, you know. Tired to see these companies not being held accountable for their actions. Holy smoke, Batman. I turned down MMA fighter on a night out. So did he wallop her? Alright. So it won't be showing that. The graphic stuff, yeah, but that's the lady there. Some very pronounced eyebrows there. Yes, so a beautician has told how a single punch from a mixed martial artist on a night out changed her life. Look at this. Look at that. So a beautician, yeah, therapist, successful business owner. Shout out. Right. 38-year-old, quiet night, later turned into a life-changing nightmare. Right, have you been in a position like that? I know I have. Right. Daughter had football the next day, so I knew I was driving and I wasn't drinking a lot. I've heard that before. Right. This boy kept approaching the table, wouldn't take no for an answer. Yeah, so this is the man here, the well-chiseled MMA fighter. That's the worst one you want to, you know. The little small ones, yeah, just jump on your neck and all them, you know what I mean? Yeah. them not easy, right? You have to be so careful out there now. You know, you go on by you know having a row with someone, and you know so happens to be a MMA fighter. You know what I mean? You soon know about it. Just walk away, right? You know what I mean? Just be easy. So, I mean, so after that now, what's she saying now? She says please just go the other way, kept harassing, verbals, Lion Fight 68, pushed her cousin so hard she was screaming, and Buduf in the face, yeah? Buduf her in her face. Buduf. You know? Brutal man, right? Never felt pain like that. You know, it looked painful to me. So that's a story. Is that from Glasgow or Scotland? I'm not sure. I think that passed. But yeah, that was the story. I just thought I'd click on that one. East Kilbride. Yeah? East Kilbride. You know. Well, there's no secret that domestic violence exists. Women to men, man to woman, boy versus boy, girl versus girl.
Tehran's troops are ready to, quote, set them on fire. The threat comes as thousands of U.S. troops move into Iran is issuing a sharp new warning to the United States. Iran's parliament speaker says if U.S. forces launch a ground invasion, Tehran's troops are ready to, quote, set them on fire. Iran is issuing a sharp new warning to the United States. Iran's parliament speaker says if U.S. forces launch a ground invasion, Tehran's troops are ready to, quote, set them on fire. The threat comes as thousands of U.S. troops move into the region, and Pakistan's foreign minister says it will soon host talks between the U.S. and Iran. Chief correspondent Jonathan Hunt is in Tel Aviv with the latest for us. Jonathan.
John, a U.S. ground operation may be on the way, and it could happen very soon. That is doing little, though, to deter Iran from continuing to attack Israel and its Gulf neighbors. A missile slammed into southern Israel near the town of Beersheba today, sending a huge plume of grey smoke over the area. Apparently it was some sort of chemical facility that was hit. Local residents were told to keep their windows shut and their air conditioning off because of the toxic fumes produced as a result of that strike. Meantime, the U.S. continues to hit targets throughout Iran, missile launchers and military manufacturing installations among the most recent targets for U.S. aircraft. As those 2,500 Marines you mentioned arrive aboard the USS Tripoli, they would be probably the spearhead for any sort of U.S. ground operation that President Trump decides to order. But Iranian officials are saying they are ready for whatever the U.S. does next, and they are mocking President Trump's decision-making. Listen here.
At one moment, he speaks of negotiations, and shortly afterward, he decides to manage the war.
Does next, and they are mocking President Trump's decision-making. Listen here.
At one moment, he speaks of negotiations, and shortly afterward, he decides to manage the war. This unbalanced and deceitful individual has inflicted extensive damage on the people of the United States, Europe, and countries around the world, especially the countries of West Asia.
Israel, meantime, is also focusing on the northern front here, its battle against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu said today that he will expand what he calls a security zone into southern Lebanon. He calls it expanding a security zone. Many others call it an invasion, once again, of Lebanon. John?
Plenty of controversy in the United States about the Iran war. What about in Israel? Is there a consensus there?
I think in this wartime moment in which the Israelis find themselves right now, they back the idea, certainly, of regime change in Iran. They back the idea of crushing Hezbollah in Lebanon, but they don't want this to be open-ended. The Israeli people, John, are absolutely exhausted. They have gone 3 years, of course, 3 years and more since the attacks of October 7th, with, it seems to many of them, unending war. And I think what they would like to know from Prime Minister Netanyahu is when this will end, how it will end. And it will be interesting as we go forward this year. Netanyahu is under a time crunch for the elections. He has to call elections here by the end of October. It will be interesting then to see how the Israeli people react to what he has done over the last 3 years and how he prosecutes these wars in the coming months. John?
All right, Jonathan Hunt reporting live from Tel Aviv. Jonathan, thank you. For more on this, let's bring in retired Navy Captain Bob Wells. So 3,500 Marines moving into the theater there, Captain Wells. How would you imagine they get used? The president has talked about no boots on the ground. Does this suggest that there will be?
Well, thank you again, John, for having me. Certainly the Tripoli and its associated Marine Expeditionary Unit has the forcible entry capability to conduct any particular options. Obviously, the planners at CENTCOM are focused on reopening the Strait of Hormuz, also the IRGC positions throughout the Persian Gulf, even outside the Persian Gulf, in terms of where they physically are. I would say welcome aboard to the Marines. Welcome aboard to the operating forces, the naval forces that are outside the Persian Gulf, the North Arabian Sea. Quite a bit of firepower, Tomahawk strike firepower, naval gunfire support, armed helicopters, persistent surveillance. Just looking at it before we go into any particular option that the president represents, I really think we're in the third quarter of this particular operation for Epic Fury, and I do think the IRGC is going to lose.
The Strait of Hormuz, obviously the choke point there that has prevented so much of the world's energy, fertilizer, food from getting through. Are the Marines going to be involved, do you think, in making sure that that is reopened?
If that's part of their mission set, obviously you have the gate guard. I've been through there dozens and dozens of times listening to the IRGC in Larak Island or off of Keshem. Notice that the American warships are coming through the Strait of Hormuz. It's got about a 2 nautical mile separation in the international waterway. But what the Iranians have done in the last week is put a new toll gate in between Larak and also Keshem. I would say that based on the planning, they would try to take out those particular toll gates so that Iran does not have the power to say yes to what is transiting the Strait of Hormuz, and things go back to its internationally recognized transit areas. They are formidable, though. They are a force to be reckoned with. So I think the Marine Corps, if they chose a forcible entry option, not only looking at the Strait of Hormuz, but also looking at other places outside the Strait of Hormuz, like Jask, which is another export area for Iran for their oil, or even Karg Island.
What about the uranium? We know the Iranians have been enriching it. Even if it's not on board a missile, it is dangerous. An Army Forces, U.S. Army Special Forces veteran, Jim Hansen, says we have a lot to be concerned about there. Listen.
One of the main things we have to get is the enriched uranium. They either have to give that up or maybe we go get it. It's a hellish concept to think we have to go underground and try to grab that stuff and leave. But that's one of the potential missions for those guys.
Is that, in fact, one of the potential missions for the Marines who are out there on the Iwo Jima?
I think it would be a mission for example, the Special Forces, specifically focusing on that particular mission set, looking at what they achieved with Osama bin Laden, in fact, in Abbottabad, recalling that mission. Also, the 82nd Airborne. The Marines, I think, are focused on the littoral areas of Iran and looking at trying to support a broader strategy of making sure that we protect the Gulf Cooperation nations. This is the largest, energy seas in history, and we need to basically free up the Strait and the Persian Gulf in order to set the conditions to actually have a new regime in the Persian Gulf for the free transport of oil, helium, fertilizer, et cetera, that are all being produced on the Arab side.
Kharg Island is Iran's largest shipment point for its energy, the energy that comes out of the ground there. Some have speculated that the Marines might go in and essentially seize it, but there's also a large IRGC, Revolutionary Guard force, on the island, is there not?
There is, and I think they're employing a porcupine strategy, and it's dangerous. Obviously, we hit some of the targets on Kharg Island from the air, but I think there's a school of thought that would argue that we need to basically be creative, continue to allow the Iranian tankers to be berthed there, maybe not let them get underway. They're very vulnerable to their political economy with their oil exports there. But I do think the focus, the critical focus of efforts got to be the Strait of Hormuz. There's other transit passage areas off of the Emirates and Oman that could be used to get to the international waterway. We need to continue the Fury operation to reduce the risk to the ballistic missiles and also the drone warfare.
Retired Navy Captain Bob Wells. Captain Wells, thank you.
As Israel and America's war with Iran enters its 5th week, the US is now being accused by Tehran of plotting an invasion. It comes after these images of US Marines sent to the region were released by the Pentagon. Iran is warning the regime will rain fire on American troops if they attack. Around 3,500 US Marines and soldiers have now arrived in the Persian Gulf. After an Iranian missile strike. With the very latest is our World News correspondent, Joe Inwood.
For a military that the US claims to have destroyed, Iran still seems capable of inflicting damage. In the Negev desert, an industrial park burns, the result of Iranian missile strikes on Israel. Today has also seen reports of dozens of drones and missiles fired across the Gulf. It has also emerged that a valuable US spy plane called an AWAC was destroyed in a strike on an airbase in Saudi Arabia. This war does not feel like it's de-escalating. There are reports in the US that the use of ground troops is being considered. Thousands of Marines are in the region. The Washington Post claims they may make an attempt to take either Kharg Island or launch coastal raids. Responding on social media, the president simply said, no, Trump is not losing his nerve on Iran, without expanding further. It's not known if a decision has been made, but any operation that put US boots on the ground would come with incredible risks, both for the personnel involved and for the escalation of this war.
Aggression and occupation will yield no result other than a humiliating capture, dismemberment and disappearance of the aggressors. American commanders and soldiers will become food for the sharks of the Persian Gulf.
This is now a multi-front war. In Lebanon, Israel has continued its offensive. The IDF released this footage. Their target is the armed group Hezbollah, allies of Iran. But that seems to include some journalists. Today, the funerals of Ali Shwaib, Fatima Fatouni and her brother Mohammed took place. Israel accused Shwaib, who worked for a channel aligned with Hezbollah, of being an intelligence operative without providing evidence. The Lebanese authorities say more than 1,000 civilians have now been killed, with more than 1 million forced from their homes. Tonight, there are fears that some may not be able to return, after Israel's Prime Minister expanded what he calls a security zone, but others will call occupation.
I said we would change the face of the Middle East, and we did it. In Lebanon, I've instructed the military to expand the existing security strip in order to finally thwart the threat of invasion and to keep missile fire away from our borders.
These are the skies over Tehran tonight. Iranian air defense is still apparently in action. Iran will know it cannot defeat the US and Israel militarily, but may not need to if it can outlast them. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Over the past month, several countries have been dragged into the conflict, and now the launch of missiles targeting Israel from Yemen's Iranian-backed Houthi rebels this weekend marks yet another escalation, potentially costing more lives and further disrupting the global economy. Here's Mark Ashdown.
December 2023, Houthi rebels board a tanker in the Red Sea. These attacks resulted in years of disruption to global trade. Any repeat could deliver a fresh blow to economies around the world. The focus so far has been on solving Iran's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the key shipping pinch point. Saudi Arabia is currently diverting 4 million barrels a day through a pipeline to Yanbu on the Red Sea coast. That means it can maintain the flow of oil to the Asian market by safely sailing it past Yemen. But that route too could now be under threat. From 2023, almost 2 years of Houthi attacks saw around 30 vessels damaged. Any repeat, as threatened, could see the narrow Bab al-Mandab Strait become another flashpoint, affecting routes for Saudi oil. And some regions are very dependent on this supply, with shortages already emerging. In Ethiopia, drivers queue at petrol stations. That's the picture too in Kenya and South Africa. Some nations in the region have now started to ration fuel. Asia has been hard hit too. The Philippines has moved to a 4-day work week, while Myanmar has imposed alternate driving days. Some countries have also introduced a fuel price cap.
In Thailand, some people have been ordered to conserve energy by suspending travel, taking the stairs instead of elevators. In Bangladesh, they've closed universities there. Sri Lanka's had some fuel rationing.
Parts of Australia are also running short of fuel. In 2 states, Victoria and Tasmania, travel on public transport will now be free for a month. And in Egypt, the streets are dark. Shops, restaurants and cafes are told to close by 9 p.m. every night to preserve energy. The government here says the UK has a strong and diverse supply of fuel and has urged motorists not to alter their buying habits.
Production is being maintained, supplies are being maintained, so people should just carry on as usual. Of course, governments will always plan for contingencies. That is always the right thing to do. But people should be reassured ahead of the Easter holidays just to carry on as things are.
90% of all trade is shipped on the ocean. If the Red Sea does become another key trading route dragged into this conflict, there could be huge implications for the global economy. Mark Ashdown, BBC News.
Simon Jack is with me alongside Jeremy Bowen. To you, Simon, first. Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, for them, the economic ramifications of all this just get worse.
They do, and as Mark was saying there, this additional potential choke point in the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb, Gates of Tears, it means in Arabic, could further add to those inflationary pressures. Now, we've already seen them showing up in petrol and diesel prices, up 15% and 26% respectively. That goes immediately into transport costs, and there's more in the post. Things like fertiliser costs make their way into food prices. And the Red Sea on its way to the Suez Canal, also very big container shipping route for all sorts of goods, and that can begin to affect financing costs, insurance markets, and I expect the Prime Minister to reach out to talk to business chiefs across industry later this week. Rachel Reeves will join a meeting of other G7 finance ministers where she'll say we need to get off our reliance on imported fossil fuels. Her solution to that is more renewables, more nuclear. That is a different message than the opposition leader Kemi Badenoch will take to Scotland tomorrow, when she said what we need is more drilling of our own oil and gas, which she accepts might not affect prices that much, but might give you more revenue, jobs, tax revenue to make interventions where you need. As I say, final thoughts on the markets is that they're going to open very shortly. The inflationary pressures we've seen already showing up in petrol and diesel prices can only get worse because what we've seen in the last week has yet to trickle down. So expect those prices to rise.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremy, the war is now into its 5th week, and it seems we've reached a bit of a crunch point, a critical moment with these Marines now arriving in the Persian Gulf.
Yeah, I think it's decision time now, Clive, for Donald Trump. Let's look at the options. If he gets a deal with the Iranian regime, and he seems to think, in terms of what he says, that he can get one, he seems to believe that they are weakened, in fact, virtually beaten, and therefore they'll make a deal. Signals coming from them are very different. Now, they seem to think they're doing actually pretty well, and they've hit AWACS, they're hitting air defense radar, they are still fighting. So if he doesn't get that deal, and their official positions are way apart, so what can he do? He can declare victory, perhaps, say, look, we've smashed them, we're going to go home, that's it. I don't think anyone's going to find that credible, probably including many people in America. Alternative, he can get in deeper. Those Marines have arrived. More Marines are coming in. There are paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne on standby, and other troops as well, as we were hearing. That is dangerous. These pictures have been released by CENTCOM, the American command there, and they show that these guys are ready. They're ready to fight. That's what they're trained for. But it's a big political judgment doing all of that, because Iran can respond, Iran can hit them. Say taking territory is one thing, keeping it is another. And as you've been hearing, on the other side of the Arabian Peninsula, there's the Red Sea, there's Bab al-Mandab, and there are the Houthis, who have started firing missiles again at Israel, not yet at shipping, but that could be the next step for them.
And what about the second front, the other front in this war, Lebanon? That's an escalation, it seems, tonight too.
The leader who is doing best out of all of this, I think, is Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's getting more of what he wants. He's wanted this war against Iran with America, as he said himself, for 40 years. And finally, he's got an American president who's prepared to do it. Netanyahu will want to continue hitting Iran. He says he wants to change the face of the Middle East. So they are occupying now, the Israelis, a big strip. They want to, anyway, of South Lebanon, plus continuing creeping annexation in the West Bank.
All right, Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy Bowen, international editor, and Simon Jack, our business editor. Many thanks. And polls suggest a majority of the American people are against the military campaign in Iran. Republicans, however, have largely stuck by Donald Trump, with around three-quarters supporting the war. But with the conflict now more than a month old, will that backing remain strong? Gary O'Donoghue has been to the Deep South, to Alabama, which Donald Trump won in the 2024 election, to speak to some of his supporters.
It's time to spray the peach trees in rural Alabama. The crop should be ready to pick in early June. Tim Pierce's family have been farming this land for almost 100 years. But this year he's lost almost 50% of his crop after just a few days of sub-zero temperatures 2 weeks ago. On top of that, diesel prices are up 50% since the beginning of the war. And then there's the fertilizer.
The ton price, it was up $400, $500 more per ton.
$400 or $500 a ton?
Yeah.
Tim can pass on some of these extra costs, but the consumer won't pay over the odds. You'd think this might shake his support for the president, but no.
If it's just going to cost me a little bit of fuel prices, that the reward is greater than the expense. And
so getting the war done?
Yeah, getting it done and not having to worry about the fact that Iran might have a nuclear missile they can send over this way. And, so I don't like war, but sometimes it's, it's not preventable.
70 miles west in Tuscaloosa, home to the University of Alabama, the college baseball team has just hit a home run against their arch rivals Auburn. Brian Banks and Ben Plattner both have sons on the team, one a pitcher, one a catcher. They follow them everywhere. Their support for the war is strong, but you can see them wrestling with concerns.
I think it's a little touch and go. I'm not disagreeing with what's going on, because I think it needed to be done in the last 47 years.
The way Trump has been handling his business, I would have thought he would have already handled it, but this is a lot bigger than we know about.
Both Brian and Ben believe Iran did pose an imminent threat to the United States. Reason enough, they say, for the president to go back on his promise of no more foreign wars. But some things they're split on.
How would you feel about US boys on the ground down there?
Yeah, I didn't want to see that.
What would you feel about that?
As far as boots on the ground, it's whatever it takes to get that regime. Once you start it, there is no going back.
Alabama is also the heart of America's so-called Bible Belt. Strong evangelical Christian faith here is central to most people's lives, and backing for this president and his support for conservative values is solid. These Seventh-day Adventists follow the Ten Commandments closely, and in particular the sixth, thou shalt not kill. So what does the congregation make of this war?
I think that people believe that Iran is a threat, and as such, they believe that as a threat, it needs to be addressed proactively.
But could that change?
There was support for Vietnam, and then it turned, and people shifted. There was support for Iraq, Desert Storm, and it shifted. And so the reality is people can be quite fickle.
Like the rest of the MAGA base, evangelicals will go a long way to keep the faith with Donald Trump, but their loyalty is not limitless. Gary O'Donoghue, BBC News, Alabama.
It's a technical delay here. Artemis people. Next video, Artemis. Get ready for you now. Thank you for my likes, my shares, my subscriptions, all the shares. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching my videos.
Back to Earth. The whole trip will take about 10 days, and it's the first crewed mission aboard the Space Launch System rocket and the Orion spacecraft.
We have the opportunity to answer the question that could be the question of our lifetime, which is, are we alone? When we go out and meet people, people ask that all the time. Have you seen evidence of this? What can we learn? And the fact is that answering that question starts at the moon.
Astronaut Christina Koch saying the moon is a stepping stone to Mars, where evidence of past life may be. NASA announced plans to spend $20 billion over the next 7 years to build a moon base near the lunar South Pole, which would one day allow American astronauts to have a permanent presence there, potentially in the next 10 years.
It is our strong hope that this mission is the start of an era where every person on Earth can look at the moon and think of it as also.
Spearheading this week's mission will orbit around the moon's far side and back, covering nearly 500,000 miles in just 10 days. News Nation. This Wednesday, expect an exciting space mission. NASA's Artemis 2 set to launch from the Kennedy Space Center with the goal of eventually establishing a base on the moon. The 4 astronauts spearheading this week's mission will orbit around the moon's far side and back, covering nearly 500,000 miles in just 10 days. News Nation's Mills Hayes has the report tonight.
Natasha, the space race is on, and Artemis 2 is just one part of it. NASA will bring astronauts back to the moon for the first time in over 50 years, with a permanent human presence on the moon, the ultimate goal. NASA officials Sunday saying,
"We are getting very, very close, and we are ready
to send 4 astronauts to the moon.
It's surreal. I almost want to say, though, I just feel relaxed. It's good to be here. We've trained for this, and we're ready to go.
Expected to take them further into space than any human has ever gone. The astronauts won't actually land on the moon, but will fly thousands of miles past the moon using its gravity to bend their path and slingshot them back to Earth. The whole trip will take about 10 days, and it's the first crewed mission aboard the Space Launch System rocket and the Orion spacecraft.
We have the opportunity to answer the question that could be the question of our lifetime, which is, are we alone? When we go out and meet people, people ask that all the time. Have you seen evidence of this? What can we learn? And the fact is that answering that question starts at the moon.
Astronaut Christina Koch saying the moon is a stepping stone to Mars, where evidence of past life may be. NASA announced plans to spend $20 billion over the next 7 years to build a moon base near the lunar South Pole, which would one day allow American astronauts to have a permanent presence there, potentially in the next 10 years.
It is our strong hope that this mission is the start of an era where every person on Earth can look at the moon and think of it as also a destination.
But first, NASA must land astronauts on the moon once again. And in a new age space race, it's something they're racing to beat China to.
We will return Americans to the moon before the end of President Trump's term. Our great competitor said before 2030. The difference between success and failure will be measured in months, not years. They may be early, and recent history suggests we might be late.
The Artemis 2 launch could happen as early as Wednesday evening, but it depends on the weather and any technical issues, and it has been delayed before. Natasha?
Mills Hayes with that tonight.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
Need some fuel for an epic gaming session?
Rollout at the Kennedy Space Center. Artemis, with NASA's most powerful rocket ever, the Space Launch System, or SLS, on a 12-hour 4-mile rollout at the Kennedy Space Center. Artemis, with NASA's most powerful rocket ever, the Space Launch System, or SLS, on a 12-hour 4-mile crawl to the launch pad, and a high-stakes, frenetic countdown blitz for yet another date with history. For the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972,
I was rolling on the moon one day.
4 astronauts are headed for a lunar rendezvous.
Victor, Christina, Jeremy, we're going to the moon.
And here we go. November 16th, 2022. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond. Roaring off launch pad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond. Roaring off launch pad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center. NASA's Artemis 1, an uncrewed test flight around the moon and a high-resolution 80-mile high flyover.
Now you are seeing the Earth, you are seeing home, you are seeing yourself in that image right there.
All to test a brand new rocket and a crew capsule named Orion.
This is the moment of truth for Orion.
After 25 days and 1.4 million miles, a fiery re-entry as Orion came screaming back to Earth at 32 times the speed of sound. Then 300 miles south of San Diego.
Splashdown. The latest chapter of NASA's journey to the moon comes to a close. Orion, back on Earth.
A picture-perfect mission with NASA precision, setting the stage for humans.
There's a lot out there to explore. And this is the next beginning. And this is the Artemis generation.
Fast forward to 2026 and the dawn of a new era. Artemis 2, stacked and ready for launch, America's biggest lunar mission in 53 years. Artemis 2 is a 10-day mission slingshotting around the moon with 4 astronauts on board, testing all of the crew systems before Artemis 3 is set to land on the moon. Artemis II is Commander Reed Weissman, originally from Baltimore, a retired Navy captain fighter pilot and a single father of 2 after his wife Carol passed away. He spent 165 days on the space station in 2014 and served as the chief of the astronaut office. Pilot Victor Glover, a U.S. Navy pilot who served on the Crew 1 mission to the space station, where he also served as a flight engineer. Originally from California, he is married with 4 children. Mission specialist Christina Cook set a record for the longest single space flight by a woman with 328 days in space and participated in the first all-female spacewalk, going up to Michigan and North Carolina. And astronaut Jeremy Hansen is a former fighter pilot and aquanaut. Originally from Ontario, he is married with 3 teenagers and proud to be the first Canadian headed to the moon.
The U.S. shines in space leadership, and they create a space where other countries like Canada can bring our genius and contribute in a meaningful way.
Artemis is the twin Greek god Apollo with perfect aim. Flanked with 2 boosters, Artemis is 15% more powerful than the... Artemis is the twin Greek god of Apollo with perfect aim. Flanked with 2 boosters, Artemis is 15% more powerful than the monster Saturn V rockets that carried Apollo astronauts to the moon more than 50 years ago.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
And NASA is building heavily on the lessons learned from Apollo.
We are ready for every scenario as we ride this amazing space launch system, the Orion spacecraft, 250,000 miles away. It's going to be amazing.
On mission day 1, Artemis will blast off with 8.8 million pounds of thrust. In just 9 minutes, they'll be in Earth orbit.
So once we get to space, the ascent portion really ends after about a half an orbit, when we're going to go from a 1,200 mile by 0 mile orbit to doing what we call a perigee raise maneuver that gets us into a stable and sustainable orbit. And then we're going to get a couple of us out of our seats and start to check out really critical systems, the water system and the toilet.
After a series of Earth orbits, they'll head to the moon. On flight day 6, the Artemis II crew will fly closer to the moon than any astronaut since Apollo 17 landed there in 1972. For the first time, putting human eyes on a remote side of the moon.
We hope it's not the dark side. We hope it's the lit far side, because that could mean that we could see parts of the moon that never have had human eyes lay upon them before.
And then they'll keep going in a big Circle 8, traveling 4,600 miles beyond the moon before returning back to Earth. All 10 days spent inside their Orion crew capsule, about the size of a large minivan. The biggest difference between Orion and the Apollo crew capsule is, first of all, it's bigger, about 33% bigger. 4 astronauts will be inside Orion instead of 3 in Apollo. And Orion uses solar power rather than Apollo's battery power. For 3 years, all 4 have been training together in this very tight space.
How do you prepare and practice for that, Christina? How do you literally sit elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, no personal privacy, no private space, to prepare for this intensity?
I think a big part of preparing for being in a small space together is respect and practice. And we came up with some rules. Hey, headphones, that means pretend I'm not here. I have my headphones on, I'm taking a break. But also just we learned how to give each other grace and what that feels like, literally bumping into each other all the time.
Artemis is about reclaiming America's leadership in space.
Roger, Tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
And setting the stage for a 21st century lunar landing.
Now today, the moon is calling us again.
Harrison Schmitt walked on the moon in that final Apollo 17 mission in 1972.
Cold War II has started, in my opinion.
But the 2026 space race is not with Russia, it's with China. Already, China has built a robotic base on the moon with plans to land its own astronauts there by 2030. Former commercial astronaut Jared Isaacman is NASA's new administrator.
Within the next 3 years, we are going to land American astronauts again on the moon, but this time with the infrastructure to stay.
And American politicians are determined not to let China get there first.
I'll be damned if the Chinese beat NASA or beat America back to the moon. We are going to win.
We have liftoff. Go Super Heavy. Go Starship.
To get there, NASA is depending on the Elon Musk SpaceX mega rocket called Starship. Standing nearly 400 feet tall, Starship is the biggest rocket ever built. Despite a perfect test flight in October 2025, Starship has suffered a series of high-profile setbacks after several test flights ended in explosions, with debris raining down over the Caribbean. The SpaceX plan used Starship to lift resupply fuel tanks into Earth orbit, then fuel up before heading to the moon and rendezvousing with Orion, which will carry 4 astronauts from Earth. Once in lunar orbit, 2 astronauts will board Starship for a lunar landing, where they will live and work for more than 6 days. That's the plan, but a Starship lunar lander doesn't yet exist, and the clock is ticking down to the goal of a lunar landing in 2028. Concerned, NASA encouraged SpaceX rival Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin to also develop a lunar lander. Posting on X in 2025, Musk said setbacks are part of testing and learning to eventually take humans beyond the moon to Mars. And NASA has also had to learn. The Artemis 1 launch was delayed for several months due to hydrogen fuel leaks and 2 hurricanes. The launch director, Charlie Blackwell Thompson, says her team now has a much better understanding of the rocket.
Is there just some natural leaking that you've now come to realize is just, that's what the vehicle does?
There is some amount, and there's some amount allowable. And so you want to manage within your allowable. And that's where we got to with Artemis, with that 3rd launch countdown, is we learned how to manage within our allowable leak rate.
Engineers also discovered problems with the Orion crew capsule's heat shield. As Orion returned to Earth, the protective shield hit 5,000 degrees, half the temperature of the sun.
To bleed off speed, NASA skipped the spaceship off the atmosphere before dipping back in. Engineers later discovered a charred layer of the heat shield where pieces had come off. NASA had to determine why and then come up with a fix for the Artemis 2 mission. Howard Hu is the Orion program manager. Do you feel like you've solved the heat shield issue?
Definitely, we have. You know, like I said, we have found root cause, which is really important. We know what the heat shield's capable of and what we need to do to make the minor adjustments for the future vehicles.
The heat shield is all that stands between the astronauts and the extreme heat of the plasma on re-entry. The danger all too real for NASA. In 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia broke apart on re-entry after a piece of the heat shield was damaged and came off during liftoff, killing all. In 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia broke apart on re-entry after a piece of the heat shield was damaged and came off during liftoff, killing all 7 astronauts. There are going to be real astronauts on board Orion 2. Does that raise the stakes for you guys?
Absolutely. I mean, we're flying people here, and we've got to do the absolute best job we can.
Their lives depend on you.
They absolutely do. Us doing our job.
There will be a city on Mars in the year 2050.
Excuse me. Give me a second, I'm going to get that back up. See if this can share. Actually, I might not do that yet. So that video is called Artemis. So if you can find that in my video section. And also there's a video after that talking about Mars. It's quite interesting if you fancy it.
Now, a new analysis shows that the 6-ton iconic altar stone at the heart of Stonehenge originated from northeastern Scotland rather than southwest Wales. The discovery shows that its construction was a far greater collaborative effort than scientists believe. Here's our science correspondent, Paula Ghosh.
It's one of the most famous prehistoric monuments in the world, and also one of the most mysterious. Why was Stonehenge built in southwest England 5,000 years ago, and what was it used for? What we do know is that the giant outer stones are probably sourced locally from England. The inner blue stones are from Wales. And we now know that the central altar stone is from northeastern Scotland and not from Wales as once thought. The irony is that the discovery was made by a young Welshman. He still remembers being brought to the site as a 1-year-old in 1992.
I remember coming with my dad and being on his shoulders looking over at the stones. So it's nice to kind of come full circle and make this discovery at somewhere so special to me.
You're a proud Welshman, and you've taken the Welsh status away from the stone. So how do you think it'll go down in Wales?
Yeah, I'm not sure they'll ever talk to me again. It's a loss for Wales, no doubt. But Wales has contributed so many rocks to this monument. I'm sure Scotland can have one.
Anthony analysed the rock and discovered it had a unique date and composition. In the journal Nature, he says it could only have come from the far north of Scotland, here in the Orcadian Basin, which includes Caithness, Orkney and Moray Firth. So this is the altar stone at the heart of Stonehenge, now partially buried. It's one of the largest stones here at around 6 tons. The big question is how on earth it was transported from northeast Scotland. Partially buried. It's one of the largest stones here at around 6 tons. The big question is how on earth it was transported from northeast Scotland and why the people back then thought it was so important to bring it all this way.
They must have been very technically advanced to be able to do that, to bring it down by boat, bring it down on sledges or whatever.
And presumably it wasn't just a matter of engineering. There must have been some sort of social cohesion for the Scots and the Welsh and the English all to work together.
Absolutely. To bring this to here, a sort of focus in a way at that time, there must have been linking between all of these areas.
So what does this say about Neolithic society in Britain?
Well, it certainly implies great social connections and sophistication. And I think what we've got to remember is these people were just like us in a way. You know, they were just as clever, but they had different technologies. But to bring a stone of this size all the distance from what we now call Scotland is really quite something.
The new discovery has changed the story of Stonehenge and those that built it. The tale is now of a people across Great Britain who were more interconnected and advanced than previously thought, and came together to build this incredible monument. Palab Ghosh, BBC News, Stonehenge.
In 1788, 3 men set off to search a stretch of coast in Scotland. They were looking for a very special arrangement of rocks, which would reveal that Earth was far older than anybody thought. What they discovered would transform science, challenge long-held beliefs, and as one eminent scientist later put it, would burst the boundaries of time. My name's Richard Fisher, and over the past few years I've been researching and writing about what it takes to embrace a longer-term view. It's why I was drawn to the story of James Hutton, the father of geology. In the 18th century, Hutton and 2 companions scoured Scotland's east coast in search of a unique formation of rocks, with gigantic timescales visibly written into their layers. I decided to retrace Hutton's steps to the place he found, called Sicker Point.
But also maybe there are ways to learn from nature to build cities that are better for all living things.
I was joined by Edinburgh University's David Farrier, an expert on deep time and author of the book Footprints. On our hike, I would learn why Sicker Point is one of the best places in the world to understand the deep geological past. But to my surprise, I would also discover a coastline that harbours signatures of the deep future too.
So we're looking out over Cove Harbour, where I think James Hutton may have left, and then we've got Torness nuclear power station in the distance. It's quite a contrast.
In the late 1700s, James Hutton, a farmer and keen geologist, noticed something curious about the rocks near his home. It was simply impossible for them to have formed if the biblical account of time was true.
And the remarkable thing about Hutton is, I think,
It was simply impossible for them to have formed if the biblical account of time was true.
And the remarkable thing about Hutton is, I think, he arrived at an understanding of eternity through evidence, through what he could point to, particularly on his farm. He was able to get the first gleanings of the processes that form mountains and valleys that move continents. And of course it was these first inklings that then led him to look at rock formations and try to connect what he saw in his farm to what he saw in places like Sicker Point.
Hutton had spotted an arrangement of rocks called an unconformity, a line separating 2 radically different rock formations, and within which tens of millions of years of time had passed. In 1788 he took 2 other researchers, John Playfair and James Hall, to show them what he had found.
By this point I think Hutton had already established many of his theories, but he was setting out to actually show people, to take people out into the landscape and say, like, look at these rocks here, this makes my point. You seem eager to get that, David, you're rocketing ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm just thinking about my picnic.
Yeah. You can just see it, right?
You're staring into the abyss here.
Yeah.
Are we going down?
So, David, we made it. After a 2-3 hour walk and a very steep clinging to a rope, we are finally here at one of the most, if not the most important location for geologists, Sicker Point.
It's an extraordinarily charismatic place. I mean, you look at it and you know that if you walk there, you can put your finger on the gap where 60 million years or so passed, without any trace being recorded, where the 2 rock formations meet. And it's an astonishing gap where 60 million years or so passed, without any trace being recorded, where the 2 rock formations meet. And it's an astonishing thought. And there's definitely that sense of sublime there, of something that overwhelms and far exceeds, the human scale.
Welcome back to Verified Live. Now to a fascinating new story, because researchers at the British and National History Museums have uncovered the earliest evidence of humans creating fire. It happened more than 400,000 years ago at an ancient human settlement at Barnham Forest near Thetford in East Anglia. That is about 350,000 years earlier than the previous best efforts. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh has had exclusive access to this prehistoric site.
The ability to create and control fire changed everything for humans. It provided warmth at will. It enabled us to cook and eat meat, which enlarged our brains. It meant that we were no longer a species clinging on for survival. We could invent and we could create. And we could go on to become the advanced species we are today. All of this by bashing rocks together. And it happened here in the forests of Barnum in Suffolk. Archaeologists found fragments of this mineral here that changed the world forever.
It's the internal surface of this that used by striking a flint to create sparks.
Right, you gonna give it a go?
Give it a go.
Iron pyrite, also known as fool's gold, it sparked a new golden beginning for humanity. Under the treetops, an incredible remain buried until now.
So this is the area where we discovered this heated sediment. You could tell it's heated because normally the clay is quite yellowy orange, and this was a distinct red.
This is where they were gathered around?
Yeah, so this is where the hearts, you can imagine early humans gathering around this fire and developing the very early use of language.
An incredibly special place.
Incredible.
Nick Ashton and his team found 3 crucial clues in this scientific detective story. As well as the fire, a hand axe on the left, and next to it, a tiny piece of iron pyrite, all in the same spot. Compelling evidence that the fire was deliberately created more than 400,000 years ago, 350,000 years earlier than previously thought. Deep in the secure vaults of the British Museum, the precious evidence is catalogued and analysed. Nick shows off his discoveries to his friend and scientific collaborator, Chris Stringer. He's one of the leading experts on human evolution.
The really important thing is, of the 2 pieces of pyrite, ideal for creating sparks.
A replica skull of the people living in Britain at the time shows that they were not of our species, but a different kind of human.
What's interesting is the shape of the skull, little detail.
A replica skull of the people living in Britain at the time shows that they were not of our species, but a different kind of human.
What's interesting is that the shape of the skull, little details on the skull, suggests that she was probably a very early Neanderthal. Even 400,000 years ago, the Neanderthals were beginning their evolution. So we think those fires at Barnum were being made by early Neanderthals. Using fire on both vegetable foods and meat foods means that you're liberating more energy to help you run that big brain.
The discovery here, published in the journal Nature, begins a new search for where else different groups of humans, including our own species, Homo sapiens, learnt to use a technology that made us the inventive and innovative people we are today.
Well, I'm delighted to say Palab's here in the studio with me. Absolutely fascinating this. So what was it like actually being there? Because fire changed everything, didn't it?
It did change everything. And just being in this place, which was one of the places which was the source of one of the biggest technological revolutions in our entire human history. It led to everything else. So you could tell I was a bit lost for words. You could tell I was incredibly excited because this was the moment that humanity gained control over the environment rather than the environment controlling us. Because the ability to create fire was the moment that we gained, the moment that humanity gained control over the environment rather than the environment controlling us. Because the ability to create fire was the moment that we gained real control. We could be warm when we wanted, we could cook food, our brains increased in size, and that led to us being able to socialise more, talk to each other. That led to social development. We could collaborate, cooperate, have better hunting practices, a virtuous circle that led to us here.
So everything stems from that. How do they actually prove the timeline here?
Well, fire has been around ever since there was oxygen. Humans have been able to harness fire through natural fires for about 2 million years. But finding the pyrite, finding the hand axes that were heated, and finding the burnt soil all together provides compelling evidence that they really did know what they were doing, especially since the pyrite wasn't found in the locality. They had to bring it in. For them, this fool's gold was the most precious substance on the entire planet, and it changed.
its energy resources if a deal to end the war is not agreed soon. In a post on Truth Social, he wrote this: the United States of America is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. Great progress has been made. But if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells and Karg Island, and possibly all desalinization plants, which we have purposefully not yet touched. This will be in retribution for our many soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the old regime's 47-year reign of terror. Let's bring in our US correspondent, David Blevins. And David, Trump really continuing this strategy of, claiming that talks are still going on, but also then making these apocalyptic threats.
Yes, indeed, Mark. This week has begun the way last week ended, with this series of contradictory remarks. The President telling us that he's dealing with a new and more reasonable regime, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio telling US networks that there are fractures in the leadership in Iran and that they're unable to say who they're speaking to there because that could put lives at risk. Now, if there is dissent within the leadership in Iran to the point where lives are at risk, you've got to ask how credible would any deal they manage to do be, especially in the context of another proxy, the Houthis, having joined this war over the weekend. The President is also, again, talking about great progress having been made in the negotiations, but the Iranians have made it very clear that they consider his 15-point list in those negotiations to be unrealistic, unreasonable, excessive, in fact, they say. So if they're making the kind of progress he's claiming, you've got to ask why are another 4,000 US Marines about to arrive in the Middle East, bringing the number there to nearly 50,000. And why is he again threatening to target power plants? Of course, the timing may be significant. I think it is worth remembering that last Monday, when he made the shock announcement that they were in talks with Iran, it was just a few minutes before the US markets opened. When he posted this morning, it was less than an hour before the markets opened, and crude oil right now is at a staggering $166 per barrel after he told the Financial Times he was thinking about taking Iran's oil, and that makes the average price of a gallon of petrol in the US right now at $3.99, the highest it has been since 2022.
Okay, David, thank you very much indeed. And by the way, in the next hour or so, we're expecting a news briefing from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, and we'll bring you what she has to say just after 6 p.m. Well, the military historian and analyst, Dr. Victoria Taylor, is here with me. So let's talk first about Karg Island.
Yes.
How important is it to Iran, I suppose, economically mainly, but also militarily at all?
Well, the two are interconnected. You look at the fact that it is Iran's financial livelihood. It has about 90% of crude oil exports in the world passing through it. And also its loading capacity is about 7 million barrels of oil per day. But of course, it's important to Iran's Revolutionary Guards as well, because it's a really important part of revenue for them. So any sort of functioning of the island is relevant to all aspects of Iran's economy and its military. But it's also very much important strategically to the Americans, because of the fact that ultimately it's an area that, because so much of the oil goes to China and they're the primary buyers, it is an American interest to try and make sure that they can have influence around that area. But of course, the problem is that whoever controls Karg will be able to sort of dictate Iran's recovery after the war. But it's kind of ignoring the problem to some degree. If you go straight to Karg, you're not really looking at the Strait of Hormuz specifically, and the fact that that is the main bottleneck right now. So if the Americans take Karg and then interfere with that oil flow, then you can end up with two choke points and putting up the prices even further.
And taking Karg doesn't necessarily mean that you control the Straits of Hormuz, does it?
No, exactly.
Because presumably the Iranians can still make life very difficult for
absolutely,
shipping
which is
from other areas.
Which is what they're doing. I mean, they don't even have to mine in great numbers to cause that kind of panic, because even just the threat of mines in the Strait of Hormuz slows down any forces considerably. They need to, mine sweep. They need to watch for any other dangers as well of drones, of missiles, of fast boats. And we know that the Iranians have very much bolstered their defences around Karg. They know that the Americans have targeted it, and they've said that ultimately it will end up with the rivers of the Gulf running in blood.
So there's the Marines on the way or there. There's other troops on their way or there. What's the chance that they will be used, do you think?
I mean, you can't count anything out with the Americans. When we've been seeing under this Trump administration all of these times that we said this was unlikely, Venezuela, for instance, and what we're seeing in Hormuz, I think ultimately it's still unlikely. It's not the preferred option. And indeed, American voters across the board, Republican and Democrats, are very much against the idea of boots on the ground. And Vance, also J.D. Vance, has been quite cautious about it. So there is a split even amongst MAGA about doing this. And those sort of
The impact of this war continues to ripple across the world. Global oil prices jumped and stocks fell sharply on Monday in Asia. The price of Brent crude, the global benchmark, was trading at nearly $116 a barrel a little earlier. And for comparison, the price of Brent was around $72 a barrel the day before the US and Israel struck Iran. And it puts Brent on track for its biggest monthly gain on record. That jump is in part due to Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen joining the conflict by striking Israel over the weekend. And it's really important to take a look at why that was so significant, because the focus so far has been solving Iran's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz. That's that key shipping pinch point. But Saudi Arabia is currently delivering 4 million barrels a day through a pipeline to Yanbu on the Red Sea coast. And that means it can maintain the flow of oil to the Asian market by safely sailing up past Yemen. But that route too could now be under threat. From 2023, almost 2 years of Houthi attacks has seen almost 30 ships damaged. Any repeat as threatened could see the narrow Bab al-Mandab Strait become another flashpoint, effectively routing for Saudi oil. Our Asia business correspondent Nick Marsh is in Singapore. He has the latest for us on the price of oil following weeks of volatility.
Well, it's up pretty significantly. Markets out here in Asia pretty much closed their trading for the day. They all closed the day sharply down based on this jump in the price of oil. I think now traders are just making a very simple calculation. They're asking a very simple question. Is this war any closer to being over? If it's not, then the price of oil is going to stay high. And I think people looked at what happened over the weekend, the entry of the Houthis in Yemen, you know, there's that Iran-backed group, looking at the talk of a ground invasion, perhaps, and they're thinking, well, this is certainly not de-escalating, this might escalate. And if things escalate, that means that the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain blocked because Iran controls it. Anything that goes through there is basically allowed to go through there because Iran says it's okay. And if oil and gas can't get through, if the fertilizer can't get through, if the cargo can't get through, then that's going to have ramifications for the world's economy. So you're seeing that market reaction based on that simple calculation of this war being no closer to being over.
So that's what it looks like in Asia at the moment. With me is Accra, our business reporter. How are things in Europe?
Well, following President Trump's comments, there's clearly been a lot of uncertainty for investors around how the conflict is going to develop, and that's left European markets opening fairly flat today. The DAX was down, the FTSE 100 actually up slightly, but the bigger picture over the last month is really one of losses to global stocks and clearly a lot of volatility. Now, as we heard from Nick there, the oil price has been trading at around $115 a barrel, and that means that the price of Brent crude has gone up by over 50% since this conflict began. And tankers that set off before the conflict have been arriving at refineries, but we're now entering a period where those supplies will start to dry up, and that means that governments all around the world are looking quite seriously at what they're going to do to mitigate some of this impact.
Tell us about the plans that some governments have talked about or even putting in place now.
Well, clearly the biggest issue at the moment is the one of fuel. We've seen prices of both petrol and diesel go up around the world. Now, in some countries, in Sri Lanka, Thailand, the Philippines, Asian countries that are particularly reliant on oil from the Gulf, we've seen them bring in measures already, everything from cutting the use of air conditioning to rationing fuel. In Australia, they've announced a 3-month halving of the fuel tax, and in some Australian states, they're offering free public transport to try and cut down on people driving and to conserve fuel that way. Because this isn't just about fuel as the conflict continues, there's also concern about a crunch on all kinds of supply chains, from aluminium to helium, and of course fertiliser, which is so crucial in food production and farming. So today, G7 finance ministers are meeting with central bank governors to discuss ways to try and mitigate some of the impact, the economic impact of this conflict, because while there's lots of uncertainty about how it will develop, the repercussions for the economy are already with us.
It's the truth of the matter, though, that they can discuss, but there's actually very little they can do until the Strait of Hormuz is reopened again.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean,
Welcome back. You're with BBC News. Now, another development when it comes to the impact, the fallout of this ongoing conflict in Iran. President Zelensky of Ukraine says that Ukraine would be open to an energy ceasefire with Russia in a bid to help ease the Iran war oil crisis. Speaking after his recent visit to the Gulf states, he said that Ukraine's allies have urged him to scale back attacks on Russia's energy infrastructure amid this ongoing global fuel crisis. But he has insisted, Zelensky has insisted, that the attacks would only end if Russia stops targeting Ukraine's energy system. So a lot to unpack. Let's cross over to Kyiv because BBC Monitoring's chief analyst Vitaly Shevchenko joins us live now. So, Vitaly, we're not talking about a ceasefire when it comes to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, now in its 5th year. But just talk us through what is your understanding of what Zelensky's saying?
Well, Kasia, as you will know, President Zelensky, all this time, the past couple of years, in fact, has been saying that Ukraine is all for a ceasefire. Now it's up to stop attacking Ukraine, and then the fire will cease. So that is not something that he has not said before. The thing that attracted me in his remarks to journalists today was that countries, which he called Ukraine's partners, some of Ukraine's partners, has asked him to reduce Ukraine's attacks on Russia's energy infrastructure, because clearly, as fuel prices are surging across the globe, this causes enormous concern everywhere. It's not immediately clear which countries he meant specifically, but recently the United States has eased some of the sanctions imposed on Russian oil because of the war in Iran. And Vladimir Zelensky said, yeah, we can cease our attacks on Russia, but they need to stop attacking us first. And this is just one example of how the war in Iran affects the war in Ukraine, how these wars are interconnected. Ukraine is getting much less attention, of course. Ukraine potentially is facing shortages of fuel. And I was in a Zoom call with President Zelensky on Saturday, and I asked him about how probable this shortage is. And he said, well, Ukraine's army has enough diesel for now, and he tried to secure more supplies of fuel during his tour of the Gulf states. So this war in Iran, it benefits Russia for now. It's making more out of its oil, but also it opens some possibilities for Ukraine, such as offering drone technology and drone expertise to countries in the Gulf. He also, the Ukrainian president said that Ukraine actually has experience in unblocking trade routes in the sea when Russia tried to stop Ukraine.
A Fox 11 exclusive follow-up to a story that sparked outrage across Los Angeles. The woman we first showed you inside a storm drain has now been identified by her family. Fox 11's Matthew Cedar joining us now after speaking to her loved ones.
Yeah, Susan, this really is heartbreaking. They're sharing pictures and videos from better times, revealing the person behind the headlines they're trying to get back.
If I could take back the past.
A voice once full of life, now hard to understand.
How
did she get in the situation that she's in?
Drugs.
Loved ones say this woman is 43-year-old Jamila Robinson, a mother of 3.
She's a wonderful person, a loving person.
We first found her last week in South LA, living in a storm drain.
When I viewed it, it just so happened to be my sister, and that's how I found out about her living situation.
Her sister, Camila, hadn't seen her in years. Were you surprised when you saw what she was living in?
No.
Well, their mother, Linda, says she speaks with Jamila almost every day.
It's the second time she's been in the sewer. The one up on Winchell's, it was like 20 of them over there.
20 in one sewer?
In one sewer. They had to cover it up.
Last week, Fox 11 first exposed the underground encampment where Jamila climbed in and out, not willing to say much on camera. Below ground, human waste, trash, and an overpowering stench. I gotta get back. As a mom,
I'm dying. I'm dead. I tried, Matthew. I've done everything I was told. As long as she could tell me no, I tell the courts no, that she didn't want the help. They couldn't help her.
Within 24 hours of our exclusive report, the city moved in. Hazmat crews declaring it a hot zone. The next day, sealing the drain shut with asphalt. Wednesday, the last time we saw Jamila, outreach teams offering help as she walks away.
I'm saddened to see that she just walks away like that. Would love to see them be more forceful in helping her. Just take her, because she's not mentally able to think straight for herself. If it was a daughter or sister or mother of the mayor's, where is such a place that she would take them? Right. Instead of just allowing them to walk away, forcefully come to them and say, hey, I'm here to help you.
The woman, once known for singing, now still out there.
I know it's hard sometimes.
While her family's fighting to find her voice again.
I couldn't get the courts to see the mentalness in her. Now the world can see the mentalness in her, and maybe I can get the help that I need and she needs now. I want to tell her that I love you, Jamila, and that I am here standing and speaking on your behalf, and that I want to fight for them, for the city, for the mayor to not just give up on you, but to actually pour into you where you are unable to pour into yourself.
Jamila hasn't been seen or heard from since Wednesday. Her family says they're going to keep.
So in a situation, unfortunate situation there, what do you think should happen concerning people that are in need of help but don't want to accept any help? Should they be forcibly helped? What's your thoughts on that? Hit up in the comment section when you can.
Pushing for her health and more aggressive intervention.
So they kept saying if this was the mayor's sister, the mayor would force her, Jamila, to get some help. But that's actually against the law.
Yeah, I mean, this is a much broader issue than just what she's experiencing. There's thousands of people across LA living on the streets that just won't accept treatment. So the question is, what do you do with those people? How do you get them the help that they clearly need?
And that's why there are people talking about changing the laws and changing city ordinances as well. All right, Matthew Seedorf.
Ancient line that is both real and not real. You can't see it, but it's there all the same. If you stood on the coast of Bali and looked east to the shores of Lombok, you'd be staring right at the line's narrowest point, a 32-kilometer stretch of water that seems pretty unassuming. This invisible barrier weaves its way through the entire Malay archipelago, the largest collection of islands on the planet. See, on the western side, the animal life is characteristic of Asia, featuring rhinos, elephants, tigers, and woodpeckers, to name a few. But cross the line, and things suddenly change. You won't find those same species on the eastern side. Instead, the island...
We're using this for fair use, for educational purposes. Put my banner up. I've got one. No, I haven't got one ready. So there's my verbal. There's my verbal one.
have a totally different cast of ecological characters, including marsupials, Komodo dragons, cockatoos, and honey-eaters. This is what scientists call a biogeographic boundary, the meeting point of two regions of biodiversity that are highly distinct. And this particular line, called the Wallace Line, is perhaps the sharpest and most iconic of all. So how did this invisible line come to be? Why does it shape the distribution of so many species? How did we figure out the path it takes? And how could it be both real and imaginary? The Wallace Line was first sketched out in 1859 by a guy named, wait for it, Wallace. Alfred Russel Wallace, to be exact, a British naturalist who you might have also heard of as the co-discoverer of natural selection. That concept came to Wallace in a literal fever dream as he lay bedridden with malaria during part of his 8-year trip around the Malay archipelago. And while it ended up being overshadowed by Darwin on that front, the second best idea he had on that trip was the existence of the Wallace Line. I mean, you know, 2 good ideas in one trip. This idea helped to forever establish him as the father of biogeography, the study of the distribution of living things. He had spent his voyage observing and collecting as many species as he could, hopping from island to island across almost the entire archipelago. And it was as he moved east from Bali to Lombok that he first noticed something intriguing. Even though the islands were separated only by a narrow strait, the change in animal life wasn't gradual and subtle. It was sudden and distinct. Wallace saw the differences in animal life between the two as being even more striking than between England and Japan. It was birds that initially caught his attention. Certain species that were plentiful on Java and Bali, like the yellow-headed weaver, coppersmith barbet, and the Javanese three-toed woodpecker, didn't exist.
Just look at the colours in nature. You can't mix those colours. Those colours are so pure colours. And unfortunately, like ourselves, are at risk. The animal kingdom is at risk. I'd like someone to come along and sort of hang things in a balance. We understand we need certain resources, but just go a little bit easy on it. You know, we don't want to lose this wonderful wildlife.
At all on Lombok. And this abrupt shift extended to mammals and even many insects too. Almost as if an invisible barrier was separating two different worlds. But why and how? The biogeographic line that he drew, which others would tweak in later years, didn't just reflect the proximity of the islands. In fact, some islands on opposing sides of the line are closer to each other than many islands on the same sides are to one another. So Wallace realized that other more mysterious forces must be in play, like, say, geology. He recognized that the geological past shapes the biological present. And because the distribution of living species today partly reflects ancient geological events, He saw biogeography as a way to uncover epic chapters of the planet's history that might otherwise have been unknowable. These concepts are easy to take for granted today. We talk about them all the time here on Eons. But they were still fairly new ideas in Wallace's day. And by taking
Thank you, Eons. That's a great video. One day maybe I can do a video like that, eh? Wouldn't go amiss. I think this video coming up is about Derby. Derby in the UK. Okay, so we're having domestic trouble. Never mind what's going on abroad. Sort out the home first, yeah? Before you worry about the neighbours, eh?
Right now on Jamaica News page tonight.
So we've headed over to the Caribbean, Jamaica to be exact. Don't want to give any others a bad name. So here we have a situation. Looks like someone's resisting arrest and the police are trying to carry out their duties. Not sure what happened before, right? But we can see what's happening after. Seems to be quite a bit of a tussle here, right? So there's a clash here. The police and not sure what's happened. As I said, we don't know what's happened beforehand, but we can see what's happening here now. And shout out to the JCF, the Jamaican Constable Federation. I've got one of the hardest jobs, keeping the people safe in Jamaica. Now you do have some rogues. I'm just saying. And there is a saying, isn't there? Right, about the apples, yeah? A few apples spoil the bunch. It does happen. I'm just saying. 0715 on the UK time, 31st of the 3rd, 2026. Let's have a look. Let me know. Let me know what you think in the comment section.
A tense confrontation caught on camera. A man already in handcuffs that clashes with police in Savlamar. The video now sparking debate across social media.
So I was watching YouTube and this video came up. It was about an African tribe starting a new kingdom in Scotland.
Welcome to the so-called Kingdom of Kabbalah, where a self-proclaimed African tribe...
Now, this one, I remember this one, right? This video here. So this gentleman on this channel, he went to Scotland and done some reporting on the African tribe that was trying to take over. And I said try. Because if they ever did try a little harder, they would have found out what happened to them. You going up to Scotland about. Eh? I mean, I just can't make it up. Can't make it up. I could never leave a continent for an island. No. I understand things are bad. But even if you do decide to come to Scotland, Why don't you just abide by the rules? Like, what you want a black man gonna take over Scotland for what? Obviously, he hasn't been to a match against Rangers and Celtic. Never mind you go and take over them. Yeah? You wait till you're lucky. They should have said, yep, yeah, it's all yours, right? All yours. Want to invite you down to a game of football. What football? I didn't come here to play football. Never mind that. You want a lick in your head? But you're lucky you didn't get the Scottish hello. One headbutt. Talking about, great people like Macbeth and the great engineers. Kiardi, founder of the Labour Party. Queen Mary of Scots. Braveheart. Mel Gibson. You're lucky Mel Gibson didn't just come out the bush there and give you two. Honestly, we haven't got enough problems as it is. Now we want to take over parts of Europe. What is? No. Leave the Europe to the Europeans. There is a home so far, far away. And it starts with A. Right? So they find themselves in Scotland. So this brave reporter went up there. Right? Done a great job. Yeah? We'll be going on the road soon. Don't worry. Once the channel builds up, I'll hit the road and do my little journalism. I mean, a beautiful part of the British Isles. It is Scotland, right? It is Scotland. It's not England. It's not Ireland. And it's not Wales. Shout out to Scotland. And did you know that I have my own tartan? Yeah, I got my tartan up there. Yeah, I have my own tartan. All the families have tartans, didn't they? Bye, Scots. Beam me up, Scotty. Beam me up, Scotty. Let's have a look and see what happened.
Kabbalah, where a self-proclaimed African tribe reclaiming land taken from their ancestors 400 years ago.
And honestly, all of that night and the next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
And they call themselves the King, the Queen, and the Handmaiden.
Is it some kind of performance art or a protest? Or was this a straight-up cult?
And it has become somewhat of a spectacle here in Scotland. Clearly, this is a very unusual sight.
So on a whim, I decided to drive up to Scotland to see if I could meet them and find out for myself. But it was only really on the way up that I discovered there was so much more to this story than I could have ever imagined.
Our home has been bent to the ground.
Manipulative and coercive behaviour.
The first thing a cult is known to do is separate you from those that love you.
She had all her children taken away from her. Jean being arrested, spending time in...
You see, so it's unfortunate, Jean Gasho and Kofi off his head. That's what off his head. They were going to leave them there until the winter. Lucky. They put them into custody, let them warm up a bit. It's not nice weather in Scotland. Stormy weather. Right? They were planning to leave them there and wait till the... Yeah, because at this time, the gnats were around and biting at their ankles. And the chief would say, let them have blood. It is royal blood. right? So you hitch up yourself up in Scotland in some bush. Not even dog got on there. Very lucky. You're very lucky. You made a lucky escape. Look, when you go into different countries, right? You just relax yourself. Okay? Right? So you just visit and go. If you're gonna stay, then you abide by the rules. Right? So it's unfortunate that there seems to be a breakdown of a family here. Okay? Right? So this is unfortunate. The young children, you know? Right? So it's not a laughing matter. Even though I may have my humorous just like that. Yeah, just like that. So let's have a look and see, right? Right, and you're gonna also hear from someone that lives nearby. Okay, you're gonna hear what he thinks about the situation. He doesn't say much, but I tell you what, in silence, I'll tell you, sometimes speaks volumes.
Someone's just sent me images of their previous home, and wow, what is that?
She was green.
You know, so they got all kind of stuff up in, you know. Look, people can do, I mean, but, you know, it's just going to look odd. You know, you got somewhere to live. Right? And you have to make all these big statements, you know, your children shall be dashed to pieces. I mean, honestly, you're lucky. They were just allowing you. You must give thanks for that. I give thanks to all the Scottish people that had time. I had time for them. You showed a lot of restraint there, I'm telling you. You want to get them going, right? Right, you don't want to get them going. You get super grand. You know about super grand? Even their grands are super. Yeah? They got super grands up there.
Home, and wow, what is that?
She was groomed and manipulated. Lily Safi is not here anymore.
Someone's just sent me images of their previous home, and wow, what is that?
She was groomed and manipulated. Lily Safi is not here anymore.
I knew that the tribe was located near an industrial estate in the village of Jedburgh. Maybe the Scottish residents here could give me a better understanding of what I was headed into. Have you guys heard about the kingdom?
Kabbalah?
Yeah. I'm trying to find some people who know anything about the kingdom.
You know, where you could just be, you know, save up your little money, you know, you go and do your job and you come home or on a Friday night, decide to go to your local shop and you know, spend some money in the local area, wherever you want. No, the Kingdom of Kabbalah. Yeah, some what's this Black Panther business. I never really liked that Black Panther, to be honest. You know, it's all right, but you know, it's a bit over the top. Black Panther, you know, right? A bit over the top, man. Let's see what's going on here. Watch this.
Of Kabbalah.
Oh God! No, you're not going to. Oh no! I don't get anything about them, to be honest. So, oh Jesus!
Did you see his? Did you see that? The man hands up in the air, you know. Don't even want to be filmed. Yeah, he stand up on the wall. Watch him. Watch this.
No, I don't get anything about them, to be honest, so... Oh, Jesus.
What that means is, yeah, oh, Jesus, with the hands to the head, yeah? It means... It's just... Your brain's gone. Your brain, you just can't even fathom this kind of stuff, man. Don't look good. Do you know how much black people have suffered in Europe to be here? Right? People come here, set the trend, and then for other people to come here and behave like that. And the thing is, they get off so lightly. So lightly. If it was us, you see, listen, if it that not even maybe a couple of hours back, Kingdom of Kumbala or whatever. If it was a black British, and I say that like black British, you know what I mean? Imagine, that's what we're called. We ain't called no British, a black British, and then that's got categories to it as well. Yeah. Talk about the people them like my grandma, my granddad, come here on a boat. Yeah, all dress up smart and that. As soon as they touch down, you know, gone to do them work and yes, them enjoy themselves. But they had to. It was horrible. It was horrible for them. Many of them were like, well, I don't know why we come here. But they did. They did. Now, you have people that just come in now. These are new people. They're not the same. No, they're not. Remember the days, yeah, when you have the original the Asian blacks in them, yeah? Right? The Commonwealth won them, the original. They were more English, the way that they grew up. Just like Jamaica, proper English, more English than here. In a way. These countries were run by England. My grandma had white Jesus on the wall. Princess Diana and Prince Charles, and a picture of the Queen. You try to tell my grandma about white Jesus or take this down and that. You touch it and see. Listen, my granddad used to say, you want your skin peeled off. Your skin, you know. Shout out to granddad, man. Right, to the golden generation. So listen, a lot of people have got it easy now. Yeah, because you never had to suffer how them people there suffer. Right? Everybody was suffering at the time. Everybody. Right? Because people in their mind thought that, you know, this place was, the streets were paved with gold and, you know what I mean? In a way it is. In a way it is. It is. So you have to appreciate what you got here. To be honest, to be bloody honest. If you don't like it, go on, go away, go. Go where you wanna, you understand? No, but they choose to do that here because they can get away with it. You know, I'm not calling for arms up, you know what I mean? But people just, I'm pleading with them now. I'm talking to them. When you come, when in Rome, that's what they say, when in Rome. You do as the Romans do. If you don't want, you know, go to Greece or wherever you want to go.
NASA is sending humans back to the moon. They'll go faster and further than ever before, but end up in the same place we went more than 50 years ago. So why spend billions and risk lives to do it all again? Well, the real goal is colonising the moon before the competition, and the race is on.
2, 1, boosters in ignition, and liftoff of Artemis 1.
That was 2022, the launch of Artemis 1, an uncrewed test of the world's most powerful rocket and its Orion spacecraft. Now comes Artemis 2, a test of the same hardware, but now with humans in the loop. Now, when it comes to this
moon business, moonology, the moon gods. Boy, these people are obsessed. Now, looking up at the sky, you see some wonderful stuff, you know, beautiful. Nature is unmatched. And we'll do better if we took care of nature, embraced it. Everything we have is nature, right? We copy nature. Right, you get on the horse, right? Right, the horsepower. Or they're on the horse tranquilite, innit? Ketamine. The young kids. Young children, yeah, you got to look out for them now. Could they be taking hard drugs at such a young age? What? Mash up before they know it. Well, they mash up before that anyway. But this obsession with the moon, it's a dead entity. Yeah, Mother Earth, and the moon's a man, the man on the moon. That's what they said. The man, it's a male planet. Male planet, that. Right? And then they got these religions now that people are dealing with. You have to know what you're dealing with. You have to go and find out what's going on. You know. What is the obsession with the moon god? What is the obsession? The obsession is so much, the attraction, right? They're going to fire a rocket. Get on the rocket, go up there. To do what? Right? You're not supposed to be there. The lion is in the savannah and the tiger is in the jungle for a reason. So you have a polar bear and you got the American bear, or you know what I mean? Very similar, but yet still different. Right? Like I saw, right? Same tree, many branches. Shout out to branches, man. Big up branches. 9, you know. See? Right? But they just want to leave here. Why would you want to leave here? When you look at all over the planets. Right? This is paradise. For us. For us. Now things could be living on these areas, like, you know, right, where they could be underneath the ground. Yeah? Or, you know, the dark side of the moon. Wherever they are, they're all right up there. They ain't got no suit on. Like, you have to wear the suit. Okay, you got to wear a suit. You can't just go up there like that. So that's stopping you. So that's showing you something. Stay away. Now, it's a great achievement. It's a great achievement nonetheless. It's amazing. It's amazing. But what I'm saying on the other side, although that's amazing, we still have such hardships on this planet. Right? We have such hardships. So why can't we sort them out? Sort them out. There's enough to go around. Yeah? On all kind of levels anyway. We're going to have to get into that another day. But there is an obsession with the moon. Comment section is for you to talk.
100,000-mile loop that will take the 4 astronauts around the moon and back, the first people to go there since 1972. The rocket is called the Space Launch System, 98 meters, slightly taller than Big Ben. Its core stage is this orange thing. It's filled with Olympic swimming pools worth of liquid oxygen and hydrogen fuel. Strapped to the sides are 2 solid rocket boosters, which, like other parts of the SLS, are upcycled bits from previous space shuttle missions. They'll fall away, having sent the astronauts most of the way into space. They'll then lose the rest of the rocket entirely because on top of the whole thing sits the Orion spacecraft, housing the astronauts and an in-space propulsion system. The crew will blast off from Florida, performing safety checks and system checks in a low Earth orbit. If all's okay, the propulsion system boosts them higher. Orion then separates, performing a final high Earth orbit before a translunar injection burn that boosts them on their 4-day trip to the moon. After 5 days in space, Orion will swing behind the moon, temporarily blocking communication with Earth. They'll then use the moon's gravity to help fling them all the way back to Earth and a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. Astronauts on Apollo 8 made the same journey in 1968, capturing the now iconic Earthrise image. Artemis will take much better pictures than these and a wider orbit, sending the crew further away from Earth than any humans in history. And they'll face new risks too. Re-entering our atmosphere, they'll be travelling faster than humans have ever gone before, exposing their spacecraft to temperatures 3 times hotter than lava. And the crew is different too. Its commander, NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman. Orion's pilot, Victor Glover, will become the first person of colour to go to the moon. His NASA colleague, Christina Cook, becomes the first woman in lunar orbit. And Jeremy Hansen of the Canadian Space Agency, the first non-American to make the journey. But they are boldly going where man has gone before. The point of this test flight, NASA insists, is a small step towards people on the lunar South Pole, where frozen water could support a moon base. The fact China plans to land a crew at the South Pole by 2030 has put a rocket up the agency.
In a great competition with a rival that has the will and the means to challenge American exceptionalism across multiple domains, including in the high ground of space. This is not the time for delay, but a time for action. Because if we fall behind, if we make a mistake, we may never catch up, and the consequences could shift the balance of power here on Earth.
If all goes to plan, next year, Artemis 3 will go into Earth orbit to perform tests on more mission hardware, including a human landing system. If that works, the landing vehicle will go to the moon on Artemis 4 to put the first ever astronauts on the lunar South Pole in 2028. NASA has also announced a highly ambitious plan to scale up robotic missions to the moon, targeting 1 a month to start construction of a lunar base at the South Pole, with future plans for up to 2 crewed missions a year to staff the base. So the race is really on, but it depends on major long-term funding and no mishaps. It's not just 4 astronauts riding on Artemis 2, but America's hopes for dominance in space.
Come on, up you get. This spring, the most sought-after commodity in agriculture isn't sunshine or rain. It's in these tanks.
We sit before the farmers in the food chain.
Fertiliser is fundamental to feeding the nation.
If I didn't put any on, it would be half the yield.
But since the Iran war began, it's soared in price, along with natural gas.
If the prices stay where they are,
disaster.
The start of the growing season brings a steady stream of tankers to Bryneflow's Great Yarmouth terminal. They're loading liquid nitrogen to spray on crops across the country. Thanks to the war, they may be spreading food inflation too.
in these tanks is liquid fertiliser. It's come from natural gas, turned into ammonia, and from ammonia into nitric acid and urea.
And it's fundamental to food production in Britain and around the world?
The world can hold about, well, it has 10 billion people. Without nitrogen fertilisers, like the sort of fertilisers we have in this tank, the world could sustain perhaps 3 or 4 billion. 6 billion would have to go.
Fertiliser prices have risen because it's an energy product. The price of natural gas has skyrocketed, and Gulf production, normally a third of global supply, is stranded. We make less than half of what we need at home. The fertiliser here comes from the gas fields of Trinidad, but there's no escaping the increase.
You see? So, got a lot of problems going on down here. So, food prices will go up soon, yeah? And the ones that are starting all these wars, they got food. What about the people that ain't got the food? People must have food, man. Shelter. Yeah, and clothing. 3 basic necessities. Bare necessities. Right? You have the haves and the have-nots. You see, right? So there's a lot of problems here. So I don't know why with this. Why can't we sort these problems out and then go and do whatever we want to do?
It's a really serious situation. In some respects, it's worse than it was 4 years ago in the Ukrainian situation. And we all know what happened 6 months later. There was 10% inflation, and that knocked the government right back. And I just hope the government needs to grip this. Can the proposed increases in fertiliser taxes, wholly counterproductive, and let's focus on the cost of living.
Those white sacks are full of urea. It's a crucial ingredient in fertiliser. Since the war began, each 1-tonne bag has almost doubled in value from around $300 to more than $600. And it's happened at precisely the worst moment. In Britain and across Europe, it is the growing season. These tankers are filling up with liquid fertiliser to be sprayed on crops. But if farmers haven't bought and paid for it already, they're going to be paying twice as much. And in a few months' time, one way or another, that will show up on your food bill.
There you go.
Bluetooth mode.